Welcome into CHGO Tavern Style. I'm Sean Anderson of CHGO White Sox.
I am Will Gottlieb of CHGO Bulls.
And CHGO Tavern Style is presented by Salerno's Pizza. Head over to the Grand Ave location and call 312-666-3444 to make a reservation today. On today's show, Will and I will be arguing, debating, probably to...
Fighting to the death
over who will win a title first in their respective sports, the Chicago White Sox or Chicago Bulls. And I think probably the place to start at first is, where is it easier to win a title, Major League Baseball or the NBA?
I mean, yeah, that's what we were just talking about. And I really think that in the NBA, it's so difficult to win a championship because in order to do that, you have to have a top 10 player. And the only way to get a top 10 player is to acquire one via trade, via free agency, or in the draft. And the Bulls have set themselves up such that all three of those are impossible. They're capped out. They cannot sign any free agents. Like, their players, young players are good. DeMar's good. They're not winning you. They're not the best player on a championship team. And they haven't made a trade in 3 years. So how are you going to trade for that guy if you just won't trade? So the Bulls, I think it's like, at the end of the day, to me, it's like a decision to actually want to compete at a high level. And I just don't think the Bulls have that, and maybe it's because of ownership, but then you guys also have that issue as well.
Yeah, funny enough, I actually feel the same exact way about the White Sox, that they just don't want to compete enough. It's very odd, the situation that the White Sox are in, because they used to spend a decent amount, maybe not enough. They could have gone a little bit further to where they were spending. I don't think they ever came close to the competitive balance tax. So, I mean, they kind of avoided that,
so
but they
MLB,
spent a little bit.
They make you pay in order to compete.
If you go over 226, I think there's a certain tax that you have to pay.
Yeah, so that's the NBA too, is like there's a salary floor you have to spend, but if you don't spend it, you just have to like redistribute that money. They're not like actually requiring you to go get good players.
Right.
And then there's the luxury tax, which if you don't go into it, you get a payout at the end of the year from all the other teams that do go into it. And so they've just been collecting that check for the last however many years because they've paid the luxury tax one time in franchise history.
Yeah, Major League Baseball isn't that nice where they're giving Jerry Reinsdorf a check. It'd be nice, but it's just like they're using this budget that they used to use improperly, and it used to be like $175 million, and now it seems like they're going to take that budget down to like $115 million and still improperly spend it. So it's like, okay, well, what are we even doing
Sounds
here?
about right.
And then I don't know if you know this, the White Sox got the 5th overall pick in the 2024 MLB draft. And since they spent a certain amount of money, they are blocked from having a top 10 pick in the next year draft.
There are no rules like that in the NBA where the league prevents you. Unfortunately, the Bulls have traded away their pick. So unless it falls in the top 10 in next year's draft, this year they'll have the 11th pick, but notably and kind of infamously at this point, a very weak draft in terms of high-level talent. So you're probably not going to get a franchise-changing player. Next year, great draft. You got Cooper Flagg, VJ Edgecombe, a ton of guys who are going to come in and be really good. But the Bulls have already traded away their pick, top 10 protected. They could get themselves back into the lottery, but that would first require them to kind of tank next year. And if there's anything we know about this front office group, that is just not going to happen.
I hear you out, and I also hear your point about acquiring a top 10 player requires drafting them, free agency, or a trade. But just to throw it out there, Naz Reid was undrafted.
Naz Reid
was
undrafted.
I mean, maybe you just go out and max out Naz Reid.
And
he's 100 times better than Vooch.
The Bulls have done, I get crap for this all the time because I'm always like the downer and making it seem like the Bulls have no chance. Like, they've done a good job. They've hit on some role players. Io has been great this year. Kobe really took a step forward. Alex Caruso was a home run deal. But that's just not enough at the NBA level. You need to have that number one guy. And it's just really, really hard to find it. It's the hardest thing to do.
And it's very Reinsdorfian to hit a home run on a free agent signing and then just keep him and not trade him.
Not trade him for the stuff that could get you that star one day.
It's great. It's really great. Stop by Salerno's on tap, located at 1201 West Grand Ave in Chicago's West Town, and enjoy our tavern-style pizza and ice-cold beers. Whether you're headed to the game, want to watch live on our big screen TVs, or are watching it from home, they've got you covered. Go to salernospizza.com or call 312-666-3444. Mention CHGO and get half off your pizza. Big Dave does that better than me, but mention CHGO and get half off your pizza. Call them at 312-666-3444 for more information. So I know at least the Bulls can make the playoffs.
Yes,
I think that's
true.
the biggest issue.
That is the one area where I will concede. And the Eastern Conference is not good. Like, I know the Pacers just beat out the Knicks to head to the conference finals. This is a team that the Bulls beat multiple times this year. Like, their whole trope about being competitive and like competing against these good teams, the Bulls did that. They did play some of the better teams in the East at a decent level. Obviously, like the super high-end teams like the Celtics, they couldn't touch. But, you know, in a world where everything breaks right, you could see the Bulls getting to maybe like the second round. And that's, I think, just a much better situation in the present than where the Sox are, right?
Yeah, and I think, too, like, you know, I bring up the draft and, you know, Major League Baseball, I mean, consistently, I think there's 2 Hall of Famers that were drafted 1 overall that are or that, you know, have made it to the Hall of Fame. So it's just like really hit or miss with these prospects. I understand the Bulls aren't in a place where, you know, you'd love them to be, but I'm pretty sure you mentioned the Pacers. Halliburton was like the 11th pick.
Yeah,
Brunson, who took the Knicks, was second round.
Second rounder, that's right.
Naz Reid undrafted. Like, I don't know. It just seems like there's a lot of ways that this could fall the Bulls' way in ways that it can't for the White Sox.
No, that's a good point. And I think, you know, in this draft, I think it's going to be tough, but like most years, and obviously the Bulls, I think if they continue on their current path, won't have their pick next year, but after that, they will. But at that point, like even if they re-sign DeRozan, that contract will expire after like 2 or 3 years, and now you're kind of starting over with not a lot. And so I guess like to me, it's easier to build from the bottom because at least you're like collecting. And I know it's different with the White Sox in their draft pick situation, but there's so many rounds in the MLB draft. You can find star players at any point. For the Bulls, I think it's going to first require them to go down, and then you've got this long, arduous process of like trying to build back up. Whereas the Sox are kind of already at the bottom, and they can skip that middle step that the Bulls are kind of facing right now.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe they'll be able to do that with Luis Robert Jr., but there's also talks that they might trade him. So there you go. I would say that the Bulls are more likely to win a title first, but maybe that's my bias.
I would say that neither team is more likely to win a title first.
Thanks, Jerry.
Maybe you've convinced me because at least they can get to the playoffs. What a low bar to clear.
At least you can make it to the playoffs and have one playoff game.
Hey, the play-in, baby.
Congrats.
We all silly like the mayor.